We want to welcome LaMonte and McKelle Wilcox to the podcast today. They are the founder of Fulfill Life Yourself, a mental health coaching organization with a vision to empower all current generations to levels of mental success and healing. By combining the latest discoveries in neuroscience and psychology, they created NAAP, known as Neuro Auto-Associative Programming. This model transcends all previous methods to solve mental health struggles and addictions. So we want to welcome you guys out to the podcast today. Now we've heard of, is it NLP?
It's kind of a different, like a break off, or you kind of made your own thing from that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So NLP, which stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming,
right,
uses linguistics to try to change someone's perceptions and their way of thinking around a particular struggle that they're having.
Okay.
Like maybe they are addicted to something, they have depression or anxiety, and certain things trigger them. And most modalities that they have out there are focused on those specific things, like how do I get rid of my anxiety around this thing or this relationship trigger that I have, or they're usually some types of triggers.
And then they'll go in and kind of go through this process through NLP, but they'll be solely focused on that one thing that they're trying to change. And then they'll leave the session, and that thing may have different programs or things that come up that kind of trigger that thing to come back a little bit. And they don't have a method to kind of continue that on to keep that program in place.
And so as I was studying and learning at NLP and using it, I started to find out that people would go off and then they'd be triggered by some scenario or some event or some external thing would shift in their life, and then that pattern would come back.
And it wouldn't come back completely how it was before, right? It's always going to be different. You'll always be at a different level of where you're at. But that similar concept or idea will come back in a different way in their life that maybe they didn't see before or perceive that would happen.
Good.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, now, Lamont, you've been doing this for quite a while, but just recently you brought on your daughter, and so now she's helping you in this aspect of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, she left for a while. She was gone. She didn't live at home for a couple of years, or a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And when she came back, she saw just a massive change in all of us, and our family, and me, my wife, and we were driven to this because of our own struggles. And so with those struggles, we had worked through a whole bunch, and she could see it. It was just huge for her.
And so now I've been working with him for about 2 years now, and a little bit before while I was living away, but not a ton.
Yeah. So. And so this concept that we work on, this particular problem, and this is what I realized and discovered, is that people need to go deeper and needs to have more of a foundational shift instead of just this one thing. And I started to realize that all these things and all these labels that we give to all these problems that we have are really they're just symptoms. We have someone who has panic attacks and we think that's the problem. But really, that's a symptom to a deeper problem.
Yeah, what's
someone
the reason
has
for
anxiety.
the panic attack? Right.
Yeah. There's some deeper, what we call maps or reasoning. And as I started to study about this and learn about it, I started to study the neuroscience behind it, and started to learn about the neuroscience and what's happening in the brain, and finding out ways that we can be reprogrammed based off of a deeper knowledge of what our subconscious patterns are, by bringing that knowledge to the forefront, to understand it consciously bring it to our consciousness, allows us and gives us the ability to then start to break our subconscious patterns and change those subconscious patterns.
And a huge difference of what we do compared to NLP is being able to teach that person how they can do the process on their own, right? So that they leave.
Because NLP, you needed a practitioner, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're giving people basically a structure and a guidance, and then it's something they can do on their own down the road.
Yes.
Exactly. So then they're the ones who are empowering themselves to go through the process on their own, kind of teaching a man to fish, right? Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, so I can give them a new perspective around this one situation that they have that triggers them, or I can give them a new perspective about how their brain works, literally teach them more about what's going on inside their brain so that they can start to have an impact on everything. And therefore, as life comes at them, as life shifts, as they have new experiences, they use that to then have a different response to that situation.
And then even through the process of teaching them how to do that, they're going through these breakthroughs and they're changing in the process. So their biggest struggles are being, broken through and kind of hashed up to where they don't have those issues on a certain level while we take them through the process. So it's kind of like killing two birds in one stone.
Yeah, and it's pretty miraculous. We've had some amazing and incredible results. And the study of the neuroscience is what got me into to meet Dr. Oliver and to learn about that and be able to have an office within his office working with his patients for 2 years, working with almost 200 patients, I think I worked with through that time. And the results were just incredible. It was quite amazing.
So you just started to pull from all different kinds of techniques then to create your own. Is that what you did?
Yeah. I tend to have the kind of mind that knows how to critique things and see where the weaknesses are and so I actually spent about 8 months where I didn't work at all. I spent all day, every day just researching and studying and taking courses and learning different pieces but also recognizing where something was going wrong, where it didn't work, where it went south, where someone would go on and why did they start smoking again after they stopped for 6 months or a year or whatever that was. And why that would happen, and then the research around the neuroscience. And I just really became obsessive researcher. I do it every day still. I can't stop because I love it so much.
Well, this wasn't even originally your background, right? You were, if I remember, you were business or something, right?
Yeah. I had been in a whole different industry doing something completely different. And this just came into my life because of the struggles that we were having in our family and myself, and the mental struggles that are so prominent right now, and trying to figure out and understand why are we have so many mental health struggles? Why is there so much suicide and all these things? And so I started to research and study and figured it out. And those are questions I can answer. They're pretty clear to the neuroscientists and the psychologists, the ones that are doing the research. Not necessarily the ones practicing, but the ones that are doing research know this stuff. And it's just amazing. And I'm just working to get it out in front of people so that they can see how much they can change in their life and how much they don't have to suffer and be stuck in the places that they've, in their lives where they feel stuck.
And especially for how needed it is, especially, even in Utah, of how high the suicide rates are and the divorce rates and all of this, this is just so needed for everyone.
Well, the crazy thing is also just in the last 2 years, because of the shutdown and emotional issues are just going crazy, and I think it's going to be a long time of suffering because of what our political side has done to what's happening, especially with kids and everything else like that.
Yeah, because we don't even know what the effects are going to be on them for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So what are the core concepts of an AAP model? What are these concepts? What makes you completely different?
Yeah, and it kind of relates to what we talked about, that we're not focused on the symptoms, and we're focused on the programming that we have, that our mental experiences, what we experience in this life, is actually a series of maps of connected neurons within our brain that process it so that it becomes that experience. It's not the actual external thing, it's the thing internally that's happening.
Because it's so interesting, as we go throughout life, we have these habits and things that we do over and over and over, like depression, right? You are depressed over and over and over, day after day, and it's this habit, and we don't want to be doing that. On a conscious level, we're like, why is it that I'm dealing with this? I don't want this in my life. But the reality is that on a subconscious level, your brain is getting rewarded for those behaviors of how you're acting and responding to that depression. And so it's kind of this brain puzzle of trying to figure that out, because you are getting something from it, but then you also don't want it. So there's a lot of conflict there.
And what you're getting from it, you're not aware of. So one of the core concepts is that our brain is working off of a chemical system, and it needs those chemicals to survive.
And
so
when you're talking chemicals, you're talking like neurotransmitters and things of that nature, right?
Exactly. Yeah, neurotransmitters, and those chemicals can be described in a way that our psychology understands, so that we can start to pick apart and realize and understand why we go into that old pattern, why it is that we go into panic, or why we get angry, we have frustration, we get depressed, we feel overwhelmed. Those are all ways that our brain is getting those chemicals met. And so if we can understand those at a deeper level, then we can start to unravel it, and we can start to pull it apart and see. And when we pull it apart consciously, it no longer feeds it those chemicals, because we now understand it at a deeper level.
So could you
And
give
then
us
it changes
just an example, as just a small example of somebody that they could kind of know what you're talking about by unraveling it and pulling it apart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so...
and I just want to clarify real fast the part about unraveling it. So many times in lots of different therapies, people feel like they have to go back in their past experiences and kind of relive that and talk about it and kind of rehash.
Which always to me seems not right.
Not very effective, right? So this is not that. We just want to be very clear that this isn't this process that you have to go back in your past and kind of relive all those experiences. This is just analyzing how your brain dealt with things in the past, if that makes sense.
And so I'll just give you a quick example, because I was lucky enough to be able to help a handful of people that were suicidal. And we would go through this process that we use to share this model, these concepts that change the way the brain works. By bringing it to our conscious, it would interrupt the subconscious. And we would walk through and help them discover what their reasoning was behind this desire to take their lives. And I worked with people who, for even years, were just fighting this desire to just escape, to give it all up and take their life. And some that had attempted many times. And by the time we go through the model, their understanding, the depth of understanding about the process of what's going on and how it meets their needs, that depth helps them realize that at a level that they couldn't consciously reach previously, it helps them realize so many things that by the time they walk out of there, they say, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, the logic is gone. Mm-hmm. It's about changing the reasoning and the logic behind what their subconscious patterns were doing. And they were designed clear back when they were little children. And so they don't know, they don't understand why it's there, and they didn't question it, and they didn't choose it, but yet it's there, and it just keeps playing out. But as soon as they get enough reward in this new thought pattern that makes other things make more sense, because the brain is weighing things out. It's always weighing things out and making choices based off of weighing out how it gets chemicals. It's literally getting chemicals met. And so that feeling to take their life was meeting chemical needs. So when they start to pick that apart and see it, suddenly they can change their reasoning and shift so much. And I still have clients that I'm connected with from 3 or 4 years ago. And they tell me, like, I've never thought that again. Like, it's never come into my mind. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why anyone would think that. And this is years later. So that it's pretty powerful.
So let me ask you a question. So how do you get to that point to when you're working with them? And I guess my question is do they come in, they fill out a questionnaire? Do you like spend an hour, 2 hours talking with them, trying to figure it out, and then they come back again, and then you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, kind of thing? How does that kind of process work?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have lots of different kind of things that we provide for people. Before we were working more towards doing one-on-one sessions,
right.
And with that we would have a clarity session to where we'd be able to see where it was that their maps and their ways of thinking were conflicting inside themselves.
And you figure that out because of things they write down, questions, and you ask, and then their answers? Or how do you figure that out?
Questions that we ask.
Yeah, so we would, in a one-on-one session, we do a lot of reading body language and tones and different things, looking for incongruencies where they don't know the answer. They will answer it, but they actually have a conflict about the answer. And that tells us where their maps are and where they're holding back. But we have, when we do groups and we do families. We do a lot more with families, where we do family sessions. We bring in all the siblings. Sometimes they're adults, sometimes they're teenagers, and we teach them the model of how to do that thing. So we teach them, this is how you can tell that they're meeting needs this way, and this way. So then we have them analyze each other, and they figure each other out and then they help each other
Wow, that
see
seems
what
like
the
a
other one's
nightmare
doing.
could happen right there. Hey, all you siblings that have been fighting, we're going to have you analyze each other.
Well, you know what? It's this ability that it gets put out on the table. The reason there's so much conflict in relationships is because they don't understand themselves, and then they don't understand the other person, and there's just a and so they stay stuck in their old patterns of meeting their needs. They can't meet their needs, so their chemicals know how to feel frustrated, get angry, escape, do whatever their thing is.
And it's actually really fun. Like, everyone is learning and growing and seeing this all together. That's why we moved a lot.
I'm just
towards group
envisioning
sessions
our
and family.
kids doing this, and I don't see fun happening.
They'll be so offended.
We have 5 boys and 1 girl, and that 1 girl, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, and you know
That's
what?
how I was.
We work with families that have a lot of conflict to start out, massive conflict. And when we get through these sessions that we do with them, they are at a whole different level of understanding of what goes on.
Because they're seeing the way that each other are thinking and why they're thinking that way. And then they're not so offended and hurt by the things that they're doing. Because now they understand why they were doing them. And so then it makes it so everyone's kind of on the same page of, like, not judging each other and trying to work it out together.
Now, are you
And
dealing
they
with
realize-
like teenagers, or are you dealing with adults?
Both teenagers and adults. Yeah, teenagers are actually easier. They're faster.
Wow.
Adults, yeah, I know it sounds hard to believe, but but teenagers really, they jump on board really fast. They see it, and they don't have as many maps that will question it or doubt it as much. But you know, you get 2 siblings and they fight and they go against each other. But once you start to pull apart and make it really clear why that happens to both of them, it's almost like they can't not change. They both see it differently, and
Like,
once
for
they
an
see
example, if one sibling is teasing and fighting the other, and this sibling over here isn't giving that sibling attention, then saying, oh, so he's teasing you and fighting with you because he wants your attention, he wants your love. And then that child over here is like, oh, wow, like, that's why he's doing it. It's because he actually loves me and cares about me and wants my attention.
And that's very simplified. So if you just
just
say
an
that to
example.
someone,
Yeah, I
it's
can
not going
say
to work. But
this
if
is
you present
this is why you're fighting, because you love each other.
Yeah, and we all try to say that, but it doesn't work unless you describe what their brain is doing. You go in and say, here's what your brain does. These are the patterns you get. And then you say, not only that, but here's how your life's going to go going forward if you keep doing the thing you're doing. Here's how your life is going to play out. This is what your relationship's going to be like. This is how your relationship with your spouse is going to be like. This is how you're going to raise kids. This is how, you go deep. In NLP, we go deep. We hit it hard. And to really get this clear understanding, this all-encompassing understanding that makes somebody go, oh, wow, I am not doing that anymore. I am not doing that. And we encourage people to do some pretty extreme things to make shifts. For example, cold showers. We teach them all these different things about what a cold shower does to you mentally and how it puts you into a place where stressing the cells is actually the way to reduce chronic stress, and to teach them these concepts and these ideas so much that they do it. They go take a cold shower. Now that's pretty intense for someone to go.
We have a 16-year-old that's been doing cold showers for like 2 years with the Wim Hof method.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a crazy kid. That kid hasn't had sugar in 5 years either. I mean, he's pretty dead.
Wow.
He's pretty intense. But anyway.
Yeah.
And
How
that's
is
just a
this-
strategy, doing the cold shower thing.
How is this different than regular therapy? Because you hear just about talk therapy. This is more than just. Is this kind of like a talk therapy, or do you actually give them physical exercises to do? Not meaning like lifting weights, but exercises in how you play things out in your life.
Yeah. One of the main other key concepts is the connection between brain and body. So our brain and how it functions, how it thinks, how it works, and then motion of our body, how it controls our body and how our body responds and how our brain responds to the motion of our body. So we do actually teach a handful of different methods to help them make the process easier for their brain to change, because it's all about changing the brain. It's changing how it's connected. It's the neuroplasticity, the reconnecting of neurons. And using the body to do that is a big piece of it. And another thing that differs from what we do is that we're not focused on the problems. We're not focused on the problems. We're not focused on like the symptoms.
Let's
of the
talk
problem.
about how mean your parents were to you, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like your parents being mean wasn't the problem, because your parents were mean to somebody else and they didn't have your same problem, right? So there's something else to it, and it's in here. And the freeing thing about that is to realize that if it's in here and you have control over it, then no one can stop you from overcoming it. No one can stop you from changing it. It was all up here in the first place. And so your response to all of your environment is all choices that you made before you were capable of making a choice. So it's kind of like you didn't choose it and it's just happening and you never figured out how to choose it. So what we're doing is we're empowering people to understand how to make those choices now that their brain kind of made without them when they were young, when they were little children, way back.
And in a way that you kind of implement this process or our model and are able to deal with all these different things, because our lives are so complicated and there's no just one thing fits all, right? So many times we go to a course and we learn tons of different strategies, and you can easily feel very overwhelmed when you have all these different strategies that you're trying to apply in all these different scenarios that happen throughout your life. And so this is a more simple model that you can apply in every situation and personalize it to you, which is also really big because every situation is so different and so complex.
Okay, so to go back to the brain thing, so I have a question. I'm not saying this is one of my children. I'm using this as a scenario, right? So every time something happens, a person just wants to kind of fight back and yell and scream. Is that literally sending like some kind of endorphin response to their brain? And that's why it continues to happen, because that's how their brain gets excited. I don't want to say excited because I don't think that's the right term, but stimulated. And so, because it's like, we need you to clean your room, and it's instant into almost a screaming match. And it's like, just talk.
So you're nailing it. This is a perfect question, because what happens is the way you parent them is creating a deficit. You don't realize it because
that's
you don't
what my
know
wife
that your brain
yes.
doesn't. and
She's saying there's a big
parents.
deficit there.
We don't realize
in this scenario, not real scenario that I'm talking about.
Yeah. So basically, the type of parenting that you have adopted for that child's specific ways of thinking is when you do it, creates a deficit for that child's chemicals in their brain. And so they're being angry and coming out with angry fulfills those needs that you just created a deficit for. This is what's so empowering for parents, is if the parents start to learn this model and they start to understand it, they'll start to understand each individual child, because they're all different. Right. They're all extremely different. Your parenting could work really well in some cases for one child and horribly for another child, have a completely different response from another child, because they're each individually different. So when you learn this model, you start to say, oh, this is why they're angry. This is why they responded like that. And these are the needs that get met. These are the chemical needs that get met. And when I say this is what creates a deficit in those chemical needs, which they are fulfilling by being angry. So then you start to learn that and start to apply those principles. And suddenly you have an incredible ability to make massive changes and shifts in your child.
And really understanding that it kind of stems all from you. So many times the parents feel like the child is doing this, the child is responding like this, and they don't realize that it starts with them. So if the parent changes, then the child will change.
And what we're doing is like this concept. One of the things that we find out as we learn the model is that our influence on other people is limited by how our brain works. And so if we can only love to the extent which we can love ourselves. We can only serve to the extent in which we serve ourselves. And most parents tend to get in this mode where it's like, oh no, I need to sacrifice myself
so often
for my children. I need to give myself as a sacrifice. I need to have my parenting needs to benefit them but be detrimental to me. But that all that does is teach them to do the same.
And remember, so many of this is on a subconscious level. The parent may not consciously think this, but that's what's going on in their brain.
But I think it resonates with a lot of parents. They're like, I'm worn out. I'm beat up. And if you're beat up, then your parenting is teaching your children to be beat up by life. If you feel beat up, they're going to feel beat up. And they might not, you might feel beat up because you had to do the dishes and you had to discipline your kids to do their chores and but they might feel beat up because, you know, they have to go to work every day. And it wrecks their happiness for the rest of their lives. This is big, deep stuff. We go deep. This is life changing. It's not just sorta.
So how like your basic clientele, let's say your family, how many sessions does it usually take? Is it like, you know, like a 5 or 6 thing? It's like a 10 session type thing. I know everyone's different, but approximately what is your kind of goal to try to get them through your system so that they can be proficient on their own?
Yeah, so the first thing that we do is we meet in a group session or what we call an intensive session. And it's about 6 or 7 hours.
Holy cow.
And I know that sounds crazy to people, but that's what it takes. It takes some momentum, it takes some shifting, it takes some opening up, and it takes like this raw acceptance of new concepts and ideas that they have never been exposed to.
And it's so funny because during this session, people don't realize how fast the time is flying because everyone is just so involved and just so, you know, eating it all up. And so it doesn't seem like it's, you know, 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah, it goes by fast, but it's also fun. And we get people that are just, they can't believe it. It's blowing their mind. They're laughing and they're joking about how weird they were 10 minutes ago and for their whole entire life. And now suddenly they see it so different, and now they're joking about it already that they were that way. And so it's really a big shift. So we do that, we have that big shift, and then we have a program that follows up with that. And people can do it at different levels. It's a digital program that they can go in, and every day we go into each of those concepts deeper.
And the biggest part of that is being able to keep your focus on all those concepts and those things that you learned at the intensive session. Because so many times we just get back into our regular life and we just forget, like our focus just goes somewhere else. And so it is really important to help you to just remember those things so that you can keep doing them.
And keep that momentum going. Now, I will say that earlier on, we didn't have any follow-up. We would do one session. For most of those 2 years I helped those people, I would do one session. And I just got an email from one of my clients that said, I don't know if you remember me. We met 3.5 years ago. She said, that session completely changed my life. She was struggling with self-harm. She was a mother of 2 children, and she was cutting herself, and she couldn't figure out why she was doing that. And she had been to, you know, other things, trying to figure it out, and therapists and different things. She came and we did this this session. She said, it completely changed my life. My life has been so different ever since then. I've had amazing experiences. I've had huge shifts, and I want to write a book about it. She says, it's been so incredible that I want the world to know how powerful this is. And so we're actually partnering up now to write a book about her story, about what happened in that one session. Wow. In that one session. Nice. And that's how I used to do it. It was just one session. But then I realized that it could be so much more helpful to keep their attention and their focus on the concepts and the ideas, to strengthen it and to build more support and find ways that they apply that to different areas of their life and continue to give them that support was huge. So then we have this 30-day program that follows up with that session.
Well, Lamont, you're going to be, Lamont and McKelle, you're going to be both speaking at our conference, April 22nd and 23rd, and we're so grateful you're able to be there and be able to dive deep more into a longer conversation with people there at the conference. And so what is your class going to kind of look like, I guess is what. Yeah, what is your class going to be like?
Yeah, we're going to cover some of these same kind of concepts, and we're going to teach a few things that people can do specifically right now, even if they don't continue to work with us or do anything with us, but some things that they can use right away, that they can use to start to change and get on that path. Because it's a path. It's a new path of thinking is what we all need. We all need to leave our past in the past and create a new future and not get caught up, because what we tend to do is we're stuck in our past. Our brain is analyzing what we have in front of us based off of our past, and therefore keeping us in our past. And so it's going to be some things that we teach them to do to start moving forward, and also to find resources, because that's really what people need, is support and resources. And we want to provide that. We want to help them see what they can do and where they can go to find ways to both become better parents, overcome their own struggles, and teach their children the same. And then we're also, presenting some ideas of some different retreats and different things that we do for teenagers, for young adults, and for couples and parents.
Well, the one thing that we really like about the conference and the way we've kind of specified it is, the nice thing is you're going to be there, you're going to be able to teach people things that they can do on their own, and then if they are interested in working with you, then go to your booth, whatever, talk with you and stuff like that. But that's why we are that's what makes the conference so good, is that we have so many different speakers, and they're there just to help educate the people on what they can do to make their lives better, whether it's in, this is emotional help, right? Whether it's physical, things of that nature. But that's what's so awesome about it. And so we appreciate you being on board and being one of our presenters, and we're grateful for that. And we know it's going to be an excellent conference, but the most important thing is that people can learn how they can become better and do what they can do to get better and stay better, basically.
So, Lamont, you have a discount code, right, for the conference?
Yes.
Do you want to share what that is?
Yeah, so it's You Can Fly 30. If you punch in You Can Fly 30, then that gives you the discount to come. And actually, the conference itself, for what you're getting, for the amount of time you get to have and all the speakers you get to listen to, is ridiculously inexpensive anyway. Mm-hmm. I have been to conferences not near as good as this and paid hundreds of dollars to be there.
It is, and that's absolutely true. Any first appointment with any of these people who are speaking is well over what the cost of the whole conference is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm hoping that we get to speak early in the conference, because we want to encourage people to come to our booth and talk to us directly about their specific struggle, their specific thing. And we're going to have other facilitators that we've trained this to also be there, so you can talk to different people who've experienced it and actually gone through that process, and so that you can ask them questions and really have a personal time to talk together. And those are things we usually charge money for, but it's going to be free at the conference the whole time. So
awesome.
It's a great opportunity. Don't miss it. I don't care what's going on in your life.
How can people get a hold of you guys?
Like your websites, all that kind of stuff. Give us your information.
Yeah. So fulfilllifeyourself.com is our website. Fulfill Life Yourself. You got to remember there's 3 L's in a row there. Fulfill Life has 3 L's. So that's the part people mess up on. And you can also get to us through our emails, which is LaMonte, and that's LaMonte at Fulfill Life Yourself, or McKelle, that's McKelle at Fulfill Life Yourself. And that's another way to contact us there. So, or you can find us on Facebook or YouTube at Fulfill Life Yourself.
Awesome.
Well, great. Well, thank you
much.
guys for joining us today, and we are excited to have you guys at the conference. And I know many people are going to be rushing to your class to be able to learn how to take care of themselves and their family and just be empowered. So thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much for putting this together and all the work that it takes to do this for those people. And I hope people will appreciate how much goes into this and how much is available for them that they can gain from going to this conference. With that many vendors, the last time we did it, we had incredible people there. I learned a ton myself about so many things with health, and it's all in one place, and it's people who just are right there live and can talk to you in person. COVID's passed, and we can now have
move
this
on
connection
in our lives
and
and finally,
communication.
Yeah, for sure.
And we can figure out what happened to us during COVID so we can fix it.
Well, thanks, Lamont and McKelle, for coming on, and we look forward to seeing you guys the next time.
Yes, thank you so much.